Well, thank you very much for being here and listening to our story. Our vision 6 years ago was actually to create a vehicle for the world to be able to better participate in the startup asset class. So we are a fund, but we're a different fund than a typical VC fund, as you'll see. We believe we created a vehicle that is going to become the ETF of startups, and that's what we're trying to do. Now, just a high-level flyover to show you what we're up to. So the first thing is what to invest in is a key issue in startups, because those of you who've done it for decades know that the vast majority of startups don't work out. You're better off putting your money in the market. So you need to make a lot of investments, and the more due diligence you do, the higher probability of success. So our strategy is not to lead deals, but to syndicate with top angel groups. And establishing those relationships was one of the early challenges. Now, that means that every investment we make is double vetted. That means an angel group, like the Band of Angels, some of you may have not heard of them. The Band of Angels was the world's first real angel group 35 years ago. A bunch of Silicon Valley CEOs said, we don't want to retire, let's help other startups do due diligence. 150 people, we look at 1,000 deals a year, invest in 20. So I thought, gee, suppose we now have our own experts and look at those 20 and invest in some of them. And this double vetting has resulted in excellent results, which I'll go to in a second. We are also learned the lesson of what's hot today may not be hot next year. So we're agnostic as to market and geography. We have over 80 portfolio companies. We have 8 in Israel, 7 in Canada, 2 in India, most of the US. And one of the reasons we're here is we want to take a look at potentially European startups. So it's kind of a different world here. Another differentiation to a standard VC fund is that our investors are not limited partners. They're shareholders. Management is incentivized with stock options. We're fully aligned. We don't win unless the shares go up. Shares go up, then investors win, and we win. So it's a different model. There's no annual management fee, and there's no carry. And we're now working on the final phase, talking to bankers about raising a lot of money and going public on NASDAQ, hopefully when the window reopens late this year, early next year. Our track record, we have over 80 portfolio companies. We've made over 160 investments. We make many smaller investments, say 100,000 roughly each, but we will do follow-ons. We don't require board seats, but the CEOs love us because they know if they make good progress, we'll be there for the next round. And we give free advice as a matter of strategy. So we started investing in early 2018, so call it 4.5 years. Already had 3 small exits, 3 budding unicorns, companies that were 5-10 million 4 years ago. They're now worth 150-200 million and off to the races. Only 1 small write-off out of all these portfolio companies. And we believe our underlying assets are appreciating about 30% per year, which is about as good as it gets in the startup world. Let me give you an example of a recent exit and show you how we actually try and help startups. So I happened to go to an angel event in San Francisco. There are tons of angel groups in the Bay Area in California, where we're based. And I look at this woman who was giving a talk about a company called Baseball. She was a Russian woman, moved to Southern California, used to run Groupon in Moscow, so she was great at B2C, very charismatic. So I really liked the story. She was going to do cat DNA and study how DNA relates to nutrition. So I talked to her after and I said, look, we can't lead the deal. We don't lead. However, we really like what you're trying to do. Let me sponsor you to the Band of Angels. So I did. The Band of Angels invested. We then invested. And they were just acquired recently by Zoetis, the public animal health company. And you can see here how we made 12 times our initial investment, and the bridge that did related to the closing, we made 1.5x in 4 or 5 months, which is actually as good a return as the 12x and the other 50K. So it's an example of one of our recent exits. Our budding unicorns are these 3 companies, and let me just focus on Promaxo. Promaxo is what we refer to as deep science startups. It's a term we've coined. The NIH, National Institute of Health in the US, spent $9 million over 7 years to fund research on a low-cost MRI machine so that older men can get the prostate MRI'd each year, because MRI catches cancer much earlier than all the other tests. And so 4.5 years ago, they had something wiggling, so they hired a medical device CEO to create a new company called Promaxis. He moved the company to Oakland, across the bay from San Francisco. So I go visit him, and I see this toroid, where they bring out the magnetic field out of the toroid, so you can put your butt there or a breast, or whatever fits in that space can be MRI'd. Cost of the machine is $600,000, weighs 2,000 pounds, doesn't require cryogenic cooling. You can go up in an elevator, and it's cheap enough to go into your urologist's office. So I look at that and I say, whoa, the hole in the toroid is passive. You can put a robot through it, and for the first time, you can actually watch the biopsy being taken. So I said, this is amazing. We want to invest. So that was actually our biggest initial investment. Invested $250,000, which is now worth more than 10 times that. And they're now off to the races, as I said. So this is an example of the kind of deals that we can find with a broad network that ranges from Asia to Europe, actually. I won't go through my long 5 decades of history. I bore you to death, but I've been on bleeding edge things for quite a while. One of my highlights, of course, is I founded a company called, I'm a semiconductor guy. When the world went from those big fat displays on your desk to the flat ones, Genesis Microchip had a chip in almost every flat display in the world, big public NASDAQ IPO in '98. But the main point is I've been doing angel investing for 35 years. Learned a lot of expensive lessons and that we're applying towards our new model. So we have over 95 advisors. Our advisors are all investors. We don't take advice from people who just pontificate, who don't have their own money at risk. We probably have 2,000 person years of experience among advisors. So almost any space, any market, we have the expertise to look at it. And that's an interesting point, because sometimes you want people doing due diligence who are not experts. Sometimes experts are not the best to do due diligence because they have preconceived notions how things should work. A heart surgeon might say, that'll never work, because they know their piece really well, and therefore they can't accept that there might be whole new ways of doing it. It kind of reminds me of a funny story. So I started 3 chip companies. One of them was very successful. One was not as successful. But that one won a World Economic Forum Technology Pioneer Award. So off I go to Davos, and this is 2006. And Davos, as you know, doesn't have a lot of startup people. It's sheiks, oil men, wealthy people, politicians, diplomats. So I hear about a session on social media. So I said, hey, what the hell is social media in 2006? So I walk into this room, 300 people, and there's Mark Zuckerberg gets up and says, and I remember those words, he said, you know, when you go to a website today like Amazon, you go deeper and deeper. We're going to go horizontal. And the whole audience is looking at each other saying, what the hell does it mean by horizontal? Well, today there are 2 billion people connected horizontally. The point is, the really game-changing things don't have comparables. The due diligence is not just good manager, good market, et cetera, et cetera. Every CEO is going to conquer the world, but you got to look more deeply. How will the world evolve in 3 years, and how will the world adjust to this, and will this really become something revolutionary? Imagine if you were presented with Facebook before you knew what social media was. How the hell do you evaluate that investment? So this is what we try and do fairly quickly, because we don't lead. So we start with a deck, a due diligence package, a term sheet from the lead investor. We'll talk to the lead investor. We'll talk to the patent attorneys, review patents. One of our advisors was the top patent and biz dev guy at Roche globally. When we review patents, we often give them free advice on how to improve the patents. And so we do quite a thorough job, but it's a second level of due diligence. So our investment decision process is pretty well structured. We have massive deal flow. We look at about 100 companies a month. We have a screening thing, and to see if it fits our profile. You know, we want to be early investors, and it's got to be someone that has a lead. When they don't have a lead and we really like it, we might help them get one. Then we do a due diligence process. That's fairly quick. Usually it takes us a few weeks with our advisors. Then we have a monthly meeting where we present to all of our advisors essentially the 4 or 5 investments that we're recommending that month. We make 4 or 5 investments a month. We invest a lot, but smaller amounts. And then we go get board approval for each investment, because if we're going to be a public company, all this has to be recorded in the minutes. And then we do the document signed, and the funds get disbursed. So it's a very structured process, but very quick. We can do this in as little as 2 weeks. The more standard process might be 6 weeks. By the way, if anyone here wants the full deck, this is just a brief one, just send me an email, and I'm happy to send you all the information on what we do. It gives you an idea of our investment so far. As you can see, we're about 75% life science, even though I'm a tech guy. And when I look back on the last 5 years as to how this happened, well, I really believe that technology is far more mature than life science. You know, how much more can you do in a smartphone or a computer or beyond 5G and bandwidth? So I believe that there are going to be massive innovations in the life science area over the next year. Plus, more people, wealthier people, older people. We're all going to need a lot more healthcare. But you can see a distribution also by geography: USA, Canada, Israel, India. Nothing in Europe yet. And even in life science, medical devices are our biggest area, but we're also pretty big in biotech. We're agnostic as to market and geography. We look at each investment as a money-for-money investor. If it's an industrial deal, maybe only 5x opportunity, but very safe, we'll invest. If it's a biotech deal, highly risky, but 100x opportunity, and we assess the risk reward, we invest. We invest typically with a 5-year horizon to an exit. It just gives you just a distribution, and you can see how the follow-on investments have really grown as a percentage. Of course, when you have this many portfolio companies, they're all looking for next rounds. So more and more of our investments are actually now follow-ons in existing companies. So we give free advice to our CEOs. They love our model because we don't charge them anything. We're available for advice, and we'll be there when they do the next round if they make proper progress. So this is probably the most important slide. It shows you the mechanics of the machine we've created, how we expect it's going to work. Unlike an operating company, let's take a biotech, they get FDA approval, and suddenly the stock is worth 10 times more. This is not that kind of investment. We believe if we can show that the underlying assets are appreciating 30% per year, then the stock price might fluctuate, but it'll go roughly 30% per year. And we believe with a shorter, think of us as a 5-year-long pipeline full of startups. Every month, we make another bunch of investments. Every month, we get a bunch of exits after a 5-year period, which is actually coming up by next year. Very small team, because we leverage the world of angels. We have probably 20 angel groups that we've syndicated with, and they like syndicating with us because we share our own conclusions with them, and it often helps them make the decisions as well. So we have some exits, very small expenses because we don't need a lot of people. We're leveraging the world of angels. We make new investments to keep our number around 100 or so. And all the excess cash every quarter gets distributed to our investors as dividends. So this is a model where not only will the share price appreciate nicely forever, but also you should expect some material dividends. If one of these unicorns hit, your dividend might be a large percentage of the share price if everything works out. So this is the model that we're following. And one of the reasons that I'm here is that we want to take a closer look at some European startups, of course, establish some relationships with some VCs here where they can lead and we can co-invest with them. But also, as we speak now, we're in the process of engaging bankers and raising up to $100 million on a NASDAQ IPO. And we'd like to get people to commit to be part of that IPO process. It'd be much easier to raise $100 million if we have 30 or 40 million of commitments. And the reason we want that much money is when we have these unicorns, they're now raising 30 million, us putting another 100,000 in doesn't make much meaning. So we're going to evolve our model where we invest more and more each round. So when a unicorn's raising 30 million, maybe we'll invest 4 or 5 million, but we'll always start small and grow with the company. So, in summary, the other benefit of our thing is that a small investor in Hungary or Latin America wants to invest $2,000, they'll be able to buy the stock on NASDAQ, and they'll have access to deals they could not access. If it's a Band of Angels deal, there may be room to syndicate with another angel group. There's no room for a guy from Dubai to participate in those really good deals. So access to the best deals, liquidity, no fees, diversification. So thank you very much, and if you're interested in the full deck or more information, just email me or give me a card, and we'll go from there. So thank you very much.